When it comes to having beauty, it can take a person to many places even in the act of committing a crime.
Actually holding it like this, and that she came down on his head and his arms and his chest.
Today we will explore cases and stories of some of the most beautiful prisoners put behind bars.
Incarcerated in the Department of Corrections for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
Murderous deception. In 2008, Travis Alexander was found brutally executed in his Arizona home. He had been struck nearly 30 times and even had a wounded throat. The evidence pointed straight to his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Arias. She first denied being involved, then changed her story multiple times, making the case even more disturbing.
Did you kill Travis Alexander?
I absolutely did not kill Travis Alexander.
After a highly publicized trial, Arias was convicted of her crime in 2013. The jury couldn't agree on a capital punishment, so in 2015, Judge Sherry Stevens sentenced her to life in prison without parole. Any chance of release was taken off the table. Some criminals lie, but Arias' deception was on another level. Even behind bars, her story still haunts those who followed the case.
The defendant shall be incarcerated in the Department of Corrections for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
Tragedy and mystery.
They found Amber Hilberling's in her prison cell dead. Now she gained national attention after she was convicted of pushing her husband out of her Tulsa apartment.
A tragic fall from a high-rise, but was it an accident or something more sinister? Amber Hilberling's case still sparks debates. In 2011, she was accused of pushing her husband, Josh, out of their high-rise apartment in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He fell 17 stories to his end, but Amber claimed it was an accident. The court didn't believe her. Despite rejecting a plea deal for 5 years, she was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Years later, while behind bars, Amber gave a rare interview, insisting on her innocence. Then in 2016, something strange happened. She was found lifeless in her prison cell. The official cause? Suicide. But many find that hard to believe. What really happened to Amber Hilberling? Maybe the truth is buried with her.
What I know to be true is no different today than it was when they offered me that 5 years. One day, I'll be able to say the things left unsaid and hope for something better.
Never-ending trial. 17 years of accusations, trials, and uncertainty. Amanda Knox thought her fight for justice was over, but Italy's latest verdict brought a new twist. Though she was acquitted of taking the life of her British flatmate in 2007, Knox was recently found guilty of slander. During early police interrogations, she falsely accused an innocent man, leading to a retrial. The court sentenced her to 3 years, but she won't serve additional time since she had already spent 4 years behind bars. Knox, tearful and shocked, called the ruling unfair, insisting she had been unjustly accused for nearly 2 decades. Her legal team plans to appeal, but the verdict keeps her tied to a case she hoped to leave behind. Even after all these years, Amanda Knox's name remains linked to one of Italy's most infamous trials.
17 anni in tutta la mia vita da adulta sono accusata ingiustamente. Qualche volta mi sento che non c'è niente che posso fare.
Unforgivable betrayal.
Molly Jane Rowe faced a judge this morning. She sexually abused and murdered her boyfriend's baby. The case shocked the Mid-South.
The people of Crockett County were horrified when 22-year-old Molly Jane Rowe was charged with a terrible crime. She stood before a judge accused of executing her boyfriend's baby. Prosecutors say she became angry with her boyfriend and threw the baby so hard that it caused fatal brain damage. In court, the baby's grieving family sat alongside Rowe's own relatives, all in shock over what had happened. Many local mothers also showed up, wearing pink and purple to support the victim's family and speak out against child abuse. Justice will take its course, but some crimes leave scars that time can never erase. Scandalous crime story.
School teacher who pleaded guilty in 2005 to having sex with a 14-year-old student.
Scandals like this don't just fade away, they leave lasting questions. Deborah Lefave, a Florida teacher, became infamous in 2004 when she was caught having an illegal relationship with her 14-year-old student. The shocking case quickly spread across the media, turning her into a controversial figure. Investigators revealed disturbing details, and her defense claimed she had bipolar disorder, possibly influencing her actions. Despite facing up to 30 years years in prison, she avoided jail time through a plea deal, sparking outrage. Many questioned if her appearance and media coverage played a role in the outcome. Even today, her case remains a subject of debate. Did the justice system fail, or was the punishment fair? Maybe scandals like this prove that the court of public opinion is just as powerful as the law itself. Most hated mother. Casey Anthony became one of the most hated mothers in America after her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee Anthony, went missing in 2008. For a month, Casey partied while pretending everything was fine, but on July 15th, her mother, Cindy Anthony, called 911, saying Kaylee was missing and that Casey's car smelled awful. Casey told police that a nanny named Zanita Fernandez Gonzalez had kidnapped Kaylee, but investigators found no evidence that this person existed. Her changing stories and lack of concern made her the prime suspect. In December 2008, Kaylee's remains were discovered in a wooded area near the family home. Casey was charged for taking the life of her own daughter, but in 2011, a jury found her not guilty.
The jury find the defendant not guilty.
The verdict caused national outrage, and to this day, she remains one of the most despised figures in modern crime history. Stiletto case.
And he grabbed me, and he wouldn't let me go, and he started wrestling with me. And then he got on top of me, and I couldn't breathe, and I was suffocating.
In 2013, Houston police responded to a distress call from Ana Trujillo. Inside a luxury high-rise, they found a shocking scene. Dr. Stephen Anderson was on the floor, lifeless, with a high-heeled shoe nearby. The stiletto had been used in a way no one would expect. Anna, a former Coca-Cola executive, claimed self-defense, saying Stephen had tried to harm her. However, investigators found that he had been struck at least 25 times. The level of force made the case even more unsettling. In 2014, after 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found Anna guilty. A stiletto is meant to make a statement, but in this case, it left behind a story that would never be forgotten.
Actually holding it like this, and that she came down on his head and his arms and his chest.
Fatal obsession.
The murder conspiracy trial of ex-stripper Michelle Linehan takes another strange turn. This time as another ex-stripper testifies against her former friend.
In Alaska, a shocking trial took a strange turn when Laura Spiotis testified against her old friend, Michelle Linehan. The case was about the 1996 passing away of Kent Lepink, a man who was deeply in love with Michelle. He spent a lot of money on her, but later, he was found lifeless under mysterious circumstances. Spiotis, who once trusted Michelle, later saw her as manipulative. She wrote in her journal that Michelle controlled Kent like a puppet. However, the defense argued that Spiotis had no proof that Michelle planned the execution. They also pointed out that the two women had personal conflicts. This trial exposed a twisted web of control and betrayal. Maybe Kent wasn't just used. Perhaps he was doomed from the start. Revenge gone wrong. A single night turned into one of the most shocking crime stories ever. In 1993, Lorena Bobbitt took a knife and cut off her husband's private part while he slept. Moments later, she fled the house and threw it into a field. What followed was a media storm that turned their troubled marriage into one of the most infamous cases in history. Lorena claimed years of abuse pushed her to the edge, while John denied it all. A high-profile trial ended with Lorena being found not guilty due to temporary insanity. Meanwhile, John used his newfound fame to appear on TV and even in adult films. Even today, people debate whether Lorena was a victim who snapped or someone who took justice into her own hands. Twisted crime tale. In March 2002, Moscow police investigated a series of mysterious attacks on elderly, intoxicated men near the Varshavskaya metro station. Witnesses mentioned a woman near the crime scenes, but no one suspected a schoolteacher. Maria Petrova, a 32-year-old teacher, carried a knife for self-defense, but eventually used it to harm strangers. Her first victim reportedly harassed her, triggering deep-seated anger. Over time, she was linked to multiple similar incidents. On April 23, 2002, a neighbor led police to her home, where she calmly admitted everything. Instead of prison, she was sent for psychiatric treatment. By 2022, concerns grew that she might be released, raising questions about her future under medical supervision. Ice cream.
They call her the Ice Killer.
In Vienna, Austria, an innocent-looking ice cream shop held a dark secret beneath its floors. The shop's owner, Estibaliz Carranza, seemed like an ordinary businesswoman, but what authorities found in her basement in 2011 shocked the country. Hidden inside concrete-filled ice cream tubs were the remains of two men, her ex-husband and her former lover. Carranza had executed both victims years apart, dismembering them with a chainsaw before sealing their bodies in concrete. She continued running her business as if nothing had happened, fooling everyone around her. But when a plumbing issue led to the horrifying discovery, her crimes finally came to light. She fled the country but was captured days later in Italy. An ice cream shop isn't where you'd expect to find a crime like this, but sometimes the sweetest places hide the darkest secrets. Mysterious rose petals. In 2000, Gregory de Villers was found lifeless in his home in California. His wife, Kristen Rossum, claimed he had taken his own life, but something was off. The scene looked too perfect. Rose petals, a wedding photo, and a suspiciously high amount of fentanyl in his body. Investigators soon discovered Kristen had access to fentanyl through her job and was having an affair with her boss. Prosecutors argued that she poisoned Gregory to keep her secret life from falling apart. The evidence pointed to missing fentanyl patches and contradictions in her story. She was convicted and sentenced to life, but years later, questions arose about mishandled evidence and lab errors. If the truth was altered, was Kristen really the perpetrator or just another victim of a bigger cover-up? Brazil's infamous case. In 2002, a shocking case in Brazil gained national attention. Suzanne von Richthofen, a young woman from a wealthy family, was arrested after being involved in a tragic plan against her parents. Along with her boyfriend, Daniel Cravinhos, and his brother Christian, she staged the scene to make it look like a robbery, but suspicions quickly led to her arrest. Years later, in 2006, Suzanne was granted parole and gave an exclusive interview, but instead of gaining sympathy, it exposed her further. She followed her lawyer's instructions carefully, trying to appear remorseful, yet reporters noticed her act, revealing the truth behind her carefully crafted image. Teacher's forbidden affair. This case remains one of the most controversial in history. In 1996, 34-year-old teacher Mary Kay Letourneau was found in an illegal relationship with her 12-year-old student, Vili Fualau. She was sentenced to prison but broke her parole by contacting him again. This led to a longer sentence, during which she gave birth to 2 of his children. After this, Letourneau tried to change the narrative. In interviews, she insisted she never knew it was illegal and that their relationship was different from other cases. She and Vili married in 2005, but later separated in 2017. Letourneau's story was told in documentaries, sparking debate. Some saw it as love, while others believed it exposed a deeper issue. No matter how it was framed, the case left a lasting mark on history. Infamous killer couple. In 1995, Toronto witnessed one of the most horrifying trials in Canadian history. Paul Bernardo stood accused of the abduction, assault, and then the end of teenagers Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. But the most shocking twist, his wife Karla Homolka not only played a role in the crimes, but struck a controversial deal with the prosecution. Homolka claimed she was both a victim and a participant, describing physical abuse at Bernardo's hands. However, videotaped evidence suggested something far more sinister. She showed little remorse, even expressing frustration that their victims drank from her expensive wedding glasses. These tapes exposed her disturbing detachment, leaving many convinced she was just as guilty as Bernardo. Despite public outrage, Homolka's plea deal secured her freedom after 12 years, but justice is still debated. Notorious killer. Aileen Wuornos is one of the most infamous female criminals in US history. Between 1989 and 1990, she executed at least 7 men in Florida, claiming they had either assaulted or attempted to assault her while she was working. Wuornos was eventually caught and sentenced to execution. Her case gained widespread attention due to her troubled past, allegations of abuse, and claims that she acted in self-defense. Despite this, she was convicted and executed in 2002. Before her execution, Wuornos gave a chilling final interview where she expressed anger at the justice system and claimed that she was being silenced. Her erratic behavior and strong statements left many wondering about her mental state in her final days.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I lost my fucking life because of it. Couldn't even get a fair trial.
Giggling Granny.
They say you killed any more?
Yeah.
Or your other husband? Which other?
She seemed like a sweet old lady, but behind her smile hid a dark secret. From the 1920s to the 1950s, Nanny Doss poisoned and ended 11 family members, including 4 husbands. She earned the nickname the Giggling Granny because she laughed even when talking about the crimes. In 1954, she was convicted of taking the life of her last husband and sentenced to life in prison. During a 1957 interview, Doss denied the accusations, claiming she wanted her freedom and a small TV for her prison cell. Despite her cheerful demeanor, authorities knew the truth. She remained behind bars until her demise in 1965, leaving behind a chilling legacy.
You did not poison either your last husband or anything else?
I certainly did.
Secret diary case. Not every grandmother spends her days knitting. This granny had lived her life darker than you could imagine. In St. Petersburg, Russia, 68-year-old Tamara Samsonova was not an ordinary grandmother. When police arrested her in 2015, they found a diary with disturbing details about missing people. For over 20 years, she had rented rooms to lodgers, but some were never seen again. One of her last known cases was 79-year-old Valentina Ulanova. Her remains were found near a pond, and CCTV footage showed Samsonova carrying heavy bags from her apartment. Her diary hinted at something even worse, disturbing rituals that suggested she didn't just dispose of people. While the full truth may never be known, one thing is certain: Tamara Samsonova was no harmless granny. Cruel noblewoman. This Russian noblewoman's name became a symbol of cruelty. Daria Nikolaevna Saltikova, also known as Saltichika, lived in the 18th century, ruling over her vast estate with absolute power. But behind closed doors, she was anything but a noble. She was feared. After becoming a widow, she gained control over hundreds of servants. What started as strict punishment soon turned into terrifying abuse. Many of her victims were young women, suffering under her rule. Whispers of her actions spread, but few dared to challenge her until the rumors reached Empress Catherine the Great. An investigation revealed shocking evidence, and Saltichika was sentenced to life in solitary confinement. A noblewoman by birth, a monster by choice, Saltikova's crimes left a scar on history that can never be erased. Deadly family legacy. A shocking case from Soviet-era Ukraine tells the terrifying story of Tamara Ivanutina, a woman who carried on a toxic family tradition. Born in 1941 in Tula, Russia, Tamara grew up in a household where poison was a means of settling disputes. Her parents, Anton and Maria Maslenko, had used a toxic chemical called thallium to eliminate noisy neighbors. Following their footsteps, she poisoned her first husband for his apartment, then targeted her second husband's elderly parents for their home. Her crimes escalated when she took a job as a dishwasher at a school in Kyiv, where she allegedly poisoned food to take leftovers for her livestock. Multiple demise and illnesses finally exposed her crimes. A woman who learned to execute from childhood turned everyday meals into silent weapons. Monastery of Horror. In the 1940s, a monastery in Greece held a dark secret. Mariam Salacidis, an abbess, used her position to manipulate devoted followers into donating their wealth. The police received an anonymous tip about an elderly woman who had given away her entire property, sparking an investigation. What they uncovered was horrifying. Salacidis was involved in illegal smuggling and had forced people to sign over their properties. Victims spoke of being locked away, tortured, and even starved. When the police raided the monastery, they rescued 36 children and discovered sick, malnourished elderly women tied up in the basement. Despite her crimes, she maintained her innocence, calling the charges satanic lies. But justice caught up with her. She was convicted and sentenced. Russian maniac. Between 2002 and 2010, Irina Gaidamachuk carried out a series of crimes in Russia. She targeted elderly women, pretending to be a social worker to gain their trust before taking their money. Her actions were driven by a need to support her drinking habits. Shockingly, 17 women lost their lives, with her often stealing as little as 20 pounds from each victim. For years, authorities believed a man was responsible due to the nature of the crimes. The case remained unsolved until a survivor provided key details, leading to Irina's arrest in 2010. She later confessed, revealing how she had maintained a normal appearance while hiding a secret life, one that ultimately led to her imprisonment. Severe starvation. People People came to her for healing, but many never left alive. In the early 1900s, a woman named Linda Hazard claimed she had found a cure for all illnesses. She believed that fasting, going without food, could heal the body, but her methods were extreme. Operating in Washington State, Hazard opened a facility called Wilderness Heights, where patients were fed only tiny amounts of juice and broth. Many of them became weak, frail, and some even passed. Locals called the place Starvation Heights because patients could be seen wandering outside, desperate for food. Despite her claims of healing, Hazard took advantage of her patients, stealing their money and possessions. She was eventually arrested for manslaughter, but her fasting ideas continued. Her case remains one of the most shocking examples of dangerous medical practices in history. Family's darkest night. A family's home burned to the ground, but the real horror was inside, which left the entire town in shock. In 2008, a peaceful home in Texas turned into the center of a tragic event. Terry Caffey woke up to smoke and chaos from where escaping seemed impossible. His wife and 2 sons didn't survive, but somehow he managed to escape, and the truth that followed was even more shocking. Investigators soon discovered that his 16-year-old daughter, Erin Caffey, wasn't just a survivor, she was involved. Erin and her boyfriend Charlie had planned everything. They wanted to be together, and when her parents disapproved, things took a dark turn. The town was shocked, but Terry's reaction was even more surprising. Despite everything, he chose to forgive her. Justice too late.
Of an 8-year-old Selma boy who was killed by a suspected drunk driver is speaking out tonight.
A reckless driver took an innocent life, but justice came too late. Megan Martson and her family were only a block away from home when a car slammed into them at nearly 100 miles per hour. The crash took the life of her 8-year-old son, Maverick. The driver, Karmjit Singh, a man with a history of driving under influence, speeding through the streets with a suspended license. He walked free the first time, but this time, charges followed. A boy full of life stolen in an instant, a family left in pieces. The law may have caught up with Singh, but justice? That's something Maverick will never get to see. Love triangle. In the UK, Mindy, a young dental student, fell in love with a wealthy businessman named Sarah Lee. She was ready to marry him, even if it meant changing her religion. But after 2 years, she discovered a shocking truth. Sarah was already married to a pregnant 17-year-old named Sana. The same day Mindy visited Sana to reveal the affair, Sana was found lifeless and struck over 40 times. The house was locked from the inside, and there was no forensic evidence linking Mindy to the crime. Yet she was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Years later, new investigations raised doubts about her guilt. Could she be innocent? Meanwhile, the man at the center of it all walked free. Crazy deception. She was charming, friendly, and always eager to help, but behind her warm smile, there was a creepy secret. In the 1930s, Anna Marie Hahn, a German immigrant living in Cincinnati, Ohio, befriended elderly men who trusted her, but instead of offering care, she poisoned them with arsenic, slowly taking their lives. Her victims, including Ernest Koch, Albert Parker, and George Obendorfer, all suffered painful ends, unaware that their kind friend was the cause. Authorities became suspicious when high levels of arsenic were found in Obendorfer's body. Hahn was arrested, tried, and convicted in 1937. In 1938, she became the first woman executed in Ohio's electric chair. Her case remains one of the most chilling examples of betrayal and greed, where kindness was merely a disguise for something far more sinister. Nurse's dark secret. Hospitals are places of healing, but in 1991, Grantham Hospital in England became the site of a terrifying mystery. In Ward 4, several babies suddenly stopped breathing, some were saved, while others lost their lives. Doctors couldn't explain what was happening, until blood tests revealed dangerously high insulin levels in multiple infants. Investigators soon focused on one person, Nurse Beverly Allett. She was always present before each emergency, and when she was removed, the sudden medical crises stopped. The truth was horrifying. These were not natural incidents. Allett was arrested and convicted of harming multiple infants under her care. Her case remains one of the disturbing crimes in medical history. It's unsettling to think that the greatest threat sometimes comes from those trusted to protect the weak. Poisonous betrayal. Marie Hilly lived a life full of deception and dark secrets. Born in Anniston, Alabama, she appeared to be an ordinary wife and mother, but behind closed doors, she was hiding something sinister. In 1975, her husband, Frank Hilly, passed away under mysterious circumstances. At first, no one suspected foul play, but when her daughter, Carol, fell seriously ill, doctors uncovered a horrifying truth: arsenic poisoning. Investigators soon linked Frank's demise to poison, and Marie was arrested in 1979, but she wasn't done yet. She escaped custody, changing identities and evading police for years. Eventually, her double life caught up with her, leading to a dramatic capture. Marie's case is one of the most chilling examples of betrayal. Some people wear masks too well, but not forever. Serial crimes. Maryanne Cotton lived in 19th century England, where tragedy seemed to follow her everywhere. Over the years, her husbands, children, and even neighbors fell ill and passed away under strange circumstances. At first, no one questioned it, but as the pattern continued, people started to suspect something was wrong. Authorities later discovered a disturbing truth: Maryanne had taken out life insurance policies on many of those who had passed. When investigators found traces of arsenic, everything became clear. She'd been quietly collecting insurance payouts. Her arrest in 1872 shocked the nation, and in 1873, she faced justice. Trust betrayed.
Janine Jones, the pediatric nurse turned convicted baby killer, has pleaded guilty to another murder charge.
Hospitals are supposed to be safe places, but in the late 1970s and early 1980s, one pediatric nurse turned them into scenes of horror. Janine Jones, once trusted to care for sick infants, was later exposed as a criminal. Working in Texas hospitals, she was linked to the execution of multiple babies, many of whom suffered unexplained medical emergencies under her watch. Jones was finally convicted in 1984 for taking the life of a child with a lethal injection, but because of a flawed law, she was set for early release until new charges surfaced. In 2020, she pleaded guilty to another case, ensuring she would never walk free again. A nurse deciding who lives and passes away? That's a nightmare beyond imagination. House of Horrors. In 1988, Sacramento police made a horrifying discovery in the yard of a quiet boarding house. Beneath the soil, they found bodies. Victims of Dorothea Puente, the seemingly kind landlady who preyed on the elderly and disabled. Puente lured tenants in, poisoned them, and stole their social security checks. For years, no one suspected her. But when a social worker reported a tenant missing, the truth unraveled. She tried to flee but was caught days later. Convicted of multiple crimes, Puente spent the rest of her life in prison. She denied everything, but the evidence in her backyard told a different story. Killer's confession. A respected nurse with a friendly smile. Who would suspect her? That's exactly how Jane Toppin, later known as Jolly Jane, got away with taking lives for years. Her spree reached a horrifying peak in 1901 when she poisoned an entire family in just 40 days. She used morphine and atropine, making her victims appear to have passed away from natural causes. When suspicions finally arose, an investigation led to shocking confessions. Jane admitted to at least 31 cases, claiming the real number was closer to 100. She even revealed she enjoyed watching her victims lose their lives. Declared morally insane, Jane avoided execution and spent the rest of her life in an asylum. But was she truly insane or just pure evil hiding behind a nurse's uniform? Cook's secret. Aileen Gatto was no ordinary cook. Wherever she worked, people mysteriously fell ill and passed away. It all started in 1833 when she took a job at a priest's home in France. Within 3 months, 7 people were executed, including the priest, his parents, and even his 7-year-old niece. Doctors blamed disease, but the pattern didn't stop. For years, Aileen moved from house to house, cooking meals that left people vomiting and in pain. Some survived, but many didn't. Her secret: arsenic. When suspicions finally caught up with her in 1851, autopsies revealed poison in her victims' bodies. Aileen's trail lasted nearly 2 decades. A servant, a thief, and a poisoner. Her story remains one of France's most terrifying mysteries. Noblewoman's dark side. Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian noblewoman from the 16th century, is remembered for terrifying reasons. Legends say she harmed young women and even bathed in their blood to stay young. Between 1590 and 1610, strange disappearances surrounded her castle. When authorities investigated in 1610, they found shocking evidence and placed her under house arrest. Some believe she was guilty, while others say her enemies framed her. Either way, her story remains one of history's darkest secrets. Maybe the truth was lost, or maybe her legend was too disturbing to fade. Gruesome discovery. In September 2017, construction workers in Krasnodar, Russia stumbled upon an abandoned phone. What seemed like a routine lost and found moment quickly turned into a nightmare. When they unlocked the device, they discovered horrifying images. Photos of a man posing with a severed human head and disturbing pictures of dismembered body parts. Authorities quickly traced the phone to a married couple, Dmitry and Natalia Bakshiv. A raid on their home revealed even more horrors. Jars filled with human remains, frozen body parts, and a handwritten cookbook detailing gruesome recipes. Investigators soon realized that these were no ordinary criminals. They were cannibals who had been at it for years. With evidence pointing to as many as 30 victims, this case is one of Russia's most terrifying. Crimes without remorse.
Therefore sentenced to the Michigan Department of Corrections for the rest of your life without the possibility of parole.
Some criminals show no remorse, and Michelle Blair proved it. In Detroit, Michigan, authorities found her 2 children's bodies in a freezer, victims of years of horrific abuse. Blair, unbothered, admitted she'd do it again. Meanwhile, Shayna Hubers took the life of her boyfriend, Ryan Poston, and acted bizarrely during interrogations. Even Sandra Lane, a grandmother, shocked many by shooting her grandson multiple times. Some, like Shelby Isaac, took lives over petty reasons. She did this to 3 people over hair extensions. Others, like Allison Weaver, committed shocking crimes, including cannibalistic acts. These women left behind gruesome cases, proving that danger doesn't always come from the expected places. Hospital horror story. In the 1990s, a shocking mystery unfolded at a Massachusetts VA hospital. Patients kept suffering sudden heart attacks, and many of these emergencies happened when nurse Kristen Gilbert was on duty. Doctors and staff grew suspicious as the number of demises tripled. An investigation found missing vials of epinephrine, a drug that can trigger fatal heart attacks. When exhumed bodies tested positive for the drug, the truth came out. Kristen had been secretly injecting patients, then pretending to help when they crashed. She was later found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. A place meant for healing had become the center of an unbelievable case. Romania's Black Widow. A wealthy woman with charm, beauty, and a dark secret, Vera Renzi was no ordinary wife. Living in Romania during the early 20th century, she had a habit of falling in love fast and making her lovers disappear even faster. Her first husband vanished without a trace, then her second. Then dozens of others entered her mansion, never to be seen again, when a devoted wife went searching for her missing husband. In Vera's cellar, police found 35 zinc coffins, each holding the remains of a man she once loved. A harmful obsession, or something even worse? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear: her love stories always had the same ending. Open discussion. Who would have thought a delicate young woman could end up in one of Russia's toughest prisons? In the Ural Mountains of Russia, a strict women's prison holds 420 inmates, many serving time for crimes like theft, drug offenses, and violent acts. Their day begins at 6:30 a.m. with exercise in freezing temperatures, followed by assigned work, sewing, farming, or kitchen duty. Security is tight, with high fences, guard dogs, and constant surveillance. Inmates like 18-year-old Victoria say they never intended harm, while others, like former gang leader Sarah, focus on rehabilitation through work. Some earn a small wage, while well-behaved inmates can receive family visits. Life here is tough, but many adjust to the routine, hoping for a second chance. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.